Before we dig into the geopolitical and grand strategy serious stuff, I just read right before we started recording actually an article in Forbes Australia for which we're interviewed, and you said something. I'm quoting you here. If you've read political theory and political history, the last thing you want to do is radicalize your middle class when your working class is already radicalized. End of quote. I think we
Yes.
forget that revolutions, since the 18th century at least, were to a large extent pushed forward by the bourgeois class, revolting as their own government, not so much the working class, although that sounds more romantic. Are we at that point today where the middle class is radicalized and the petit bourgeois is essentially voting for Trump now?
Well, I think you can see that there. We had examples of that in many emerging markets before Trumpism emerged in the US. And it's one of the other reasons, besides a knowledge of history and sociology and political theory, that I said it. But it remains true. If you look at Western democracies, the working class obviously are not having the best time of it. That goes without saying. But to reiterate your point, that's not when you get turning points electorally or structurally. It's when the great middle class suddenly realizes that the system is no longer providing for them, or that their children will be worse off than they are, which is where we are now in many Western democracies. And the outcomes of that tend to be very, very radical policy shifts. Look around you. What do we see?
Yeah, essentially that. And it's true that for the first time in over a century, this generation will be less wealthy than the previous one from our parents, essentially, or my parents, I guess.